What's up, YouTube? Peace. Yo, this Troy y'all back with another video. I got interesting discussion, man. It's about between these two people. If you don't know, this is to the left. It's a two-time Grammy Award-winning artist, Lecrae, and then the very talented Jackie Hill Perry, also a musical artist. And they're having a discussion, just in general about Jackie Perry, about religion and about faith and things like that. But they talk about something specifically that I think is very important for so-called Black people who are in the religion organization called Christianity. The one thing about Christianity that I want brothers and sisters who hear this to understand is that as a so-called Black man or woman, you're not able to really identify as a so-called Black person in that religion. Same with Islam, same as Judaism. The only way you're accepted in that religion is if you forsake basically who you are as a person, because you're going to be just identified as a quote unquote fundamentalist Christian. And that's why I think a lot of our people get confounded when we are among people who we fellowship with, and then they end up turning on us when we talk about social issues. And I'm not saying that all the social issues are necessarily right, but it's going to affect us to a certain degree because of just where we come from and the people that we associate with, even if we're not around them all the time, but we grew up in that environment. Most of us have. So I'm gonna have them talk about it, and I'm gonna chime in, and we're gonna talk about, just this conversation.
Were you a part of a denomination? Did you ever subscribe to a denomination? Like, do you go wherever the doors open? Are you, like, how do you, because I listen to your words
Mm-hmm.
and this is my perspective. So
Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
I'm not telling you that, you know,
I'm so sorry to get all this makeup on your.
I do not, let me tell you something.
I just keep saying it like, man.
I ain't worried about that.
Go ahead.
But my flagpole used to be in the ground of my Christian tradition.
Okay.
My theological framework was
Okay.
my flagpole, which for some people, at one point in time, it was, my denomination,
Mm-hmm.
right? As I've just experienced more life in more places, and I'm like, I just want to be biblical. I don't know if my flagpole needs to be, Baptist or charismatic or so on and so forth. Like, where are you at with that?
And before she chimes in, let me just say, in regards to our faith, it really should be biblical because as you get to understand more and more about these religions, you understand that they're all man made. The Bible is the only thing that's really the truth, that we have in this life. So these denominations and these different churches, they all have a certain agenda that they have to, basically promote in order to, increase their membership because church is a business, um, big business, and a $1 trillion business, multi-trillion-dollar business, and so they have to play a certain role to keep people basically medicated on, using the Bible almost as a psychological therapy, rather than teaching people about the scriptures. You basically just learn how to cope with things, and you use the Bible or the religion in order to cope. So that's good that Lecrae, he's searching, to find the truth. He's very conflicted. He's very confused, but he's searching. I guess I told brothers a while ago. I did a video on his last album. I've been listening to Lecrae for a long time, and I see the confliction in his music. That's why I said on that album Restored, it's a split on the picture where he's the cover on is split to show that he's split internally. That was very direct. Allegedly, that's what but that's from my perspective why he had that split of his face on that alleged on that restored album because he's internally conflicted.
When you say flagpole, you mean like allegiance, loyalty,
I think
framework?
almost identity.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Like, if you are not this, you're not solid.
Oh.
You know what I'm saying? So a Baptist would probably say a Methodist is, well, you're just a little off.
Yeah.
But I mean, I love you, my
Yeah.
brother. You're just a little off.
Yeah.
That's what I'm wondering for you.
Yeah.
Was there?
I feel like I'm an amalgamation of a lot of traditions.
Okay.
And it might be because I've always been a part of churches that are non denominational, yet they actually function
As a
as a
denomination.
denomination. So when I was growing up, I went to a missionary Baptist church. when I got saved, I went to a non-denominational church that functioned like an apostolic Pentecostal church.
Okay.
When I came out of that, I went to P4CN, which was super hip, super cultural. When I came out of that, I went to a Reformed church in St. Louis that was kind of black Reformed esque. When I got out of that, I went to Chicago, went to Legacy Disciple. When I came out of that, you know what I'm saying? So like, I think I have this. I'm just a plethora of different traditions,
Yep.
in a sense, and so I think I want to honor. I am theologically reformed, but I think I'm charismatic and Pentecostal in my communication of Reformed theology.
Now,
I just say, man, the Christian lingo, man, is off the chain, man. It's just, it's like you just gotta be around that church environment to understand what they're talking about. But to be charismatic, I mean, they're into the practice of what people would say speaking in tongues. But they're more energetic. You see people running around, quote unquote, catching the Holy Ghost. That's what they mean, like charismatic. But yeah, that's what I say. It's church culture is its own culture, man. It's like each denomination has their own way of worshiping the Most High, or they allege it to worship the Most High.
I'm an RTS dropout.
Okay.
So just that maybe that's part of my problem. Sorry, RTS, if y'all lose money off of that.
They won't.
They show them.
When they say RTS, he's talking about the Reformed Theological Seminary that's in Dallas.
They won't.
But for you going to RTS in like the Reformed tradition, so to speak, like how did that come about? What does that mean to you?
I don't know. I don't really be like, oh, I'm gonna go here because it's reform. Because even when I plan to get a PhD, I want to go to a liberal secular institution. So because I think that liberal and secular institutions, you can learn in a particular way that is helpful and healthy. In the same way that in Reformed or Presbyterian or whatever institutions you can learn in a healthy. I think it's ultimately up to you how you take in what you're being taught.
Yeah.
And so I don't really know. I think I ascribe to whatever is true to.
I agree with that. You take in what you basically you can only go as far as how much motivated you are. You can take in the information from anyone, but it depends on how you process the information, how you use the information. That's what increases your knowledge and your wisdom.
To scripture.
Okay.
Right? So if that, do I believe that God elects people? Yes. Do I believe that salvation is from the Lord and him only? Yes. Do I believe that God will keep all that he saved? Yes. Do I believe that scripture is God breathed? Yes. Do I believe it's inerrant? Yes. Do I believe it's authoritative? Yes. Do I think God is going to come back and judge people? Absolutely. Like, does it make me reformed? Does it make me biblical?
That's what I'm saying. That's what I.
Exactly, and that's what I said. People, a lot of Christians, they like to talk about their denomination so much that they get lost in the sauce. That's why they get so confused, because they're trying to live up to a doctrine rather than just what the Bible says, and everything that she says is biblical. And that's why you become more solid when you stand on biblical principles rather than on a denomination.
That's the challenge I always try to offer people. It's
Yes.
like I think I'm just biblical.
Yeah.
But because honestly, there's a lot of people who would say they're not reformed who would subscribe to everything you
Right.
just said. So
Right.
that's an interesting.
The thing is, when he says he's biblical, most Christians, they say they're biblical, but most of them only read the New Testament, quote unquote New Testament. The New Testament is really just a new covenant. Testament and covenant really mean the same in Hebrew. So they think that the New Testament is just a whole different standard that the Most High has given humanity, when it's really, the Old Testament and the New Testament are one and the same. It's really more a deeper relationship that the Most High is now implemented on the elect of Israel, on the church. The church is the elect of Israel, the elect of the ones that the Most High has chosen or predestined, that they're going to be, saved in the last days. But, that's why I said that he's biblical, but he doesn't really follow the commandments of the Most High. And that's why he's a little confused.
But we on names and so on and so forth. Being that, and this is how I felt. So we were talking about this earlier. I felt personally like, because within the Reformed evangelical circles, there were not a lot of black faces. I don't think I was taken watch some because I love Dr. Keller. John Piper ain't show me none but love. But I do think that there were some people who were like, shoot, this is our shot, you know. And I was an echo chamber for a lot of folks.
For sure.
And that's why I said the black conversation. That's why I said we have to stop identifying ourselves as quote unquote black, because when you're used as quote unquote black, it's the same way in chess. In chess, you have the white pieces and you have the black pieces. They use the so called people who identify as black and the people who identify as white to play a game. It's very Masonic. It's very uh very esoteric, uh, very alchemic about black and white coming together. And that's why I say the liberal side and the conservative side, they use the so-called black man and women in just different ways. The liberal is very out front about trying to play the nice cop in order to be on our side and sympathize with the struggles and talk about slavery all the time and to perpetually say that we're victims. The conservative is more on the conservative side of Christianity, fundamentalist Christianity. And the thing is, they don't really acknowledge the quote unquote black people, but they acknowledge you if you're espousing what they would call fundamentalistic Christian values. So when they see a so-called black man like Lecrae who has braids and tattoos and he's speaking about Jesus, they're going to say like, "Oh wow, see, we can use him to basically talk about our beliefs and not necessarily just the Bible, but to expound that, because I know he's going to pick up books that are written by Tim Keller and things like John Piper and these so-called Caucasian um, pastors who are going to, they're going to teach, to a relative degree, a lot of truth in their messages, but they're going to see themselves as the leader and the teacher. But the so-called black man is just a voice piece to bring the youth in. Yeah, so they're still espousing what the people would call this white supremacy, but it's really just white rulership. That the white man is the king. He's the head. He's the man, and I'm as the so-called black person am just his steward. I'm just his student, and I basically I spread the message that he taught to me. That color doesn't matter. Jesus, he was, he may have been a what they would call a Middle Eastern brown skinned person, but hey, but all our leaders are white and all our teachers are white, so let's just accept that. They basically hide your identity as the so-called black person, and that's when they hide Christ's identity as the so-called black man as well. But that's a whole different topic on another story. But yes, Christ himself wasn't what you would call today black. Yeah, of course, he didn't identify himself as black, but he had the physical characteristics and of a quote unquote American so-called black person today.
Instead of a voice that they, would have said, "Oh, we need to respect your voice and let you into our spaces and places." Like, has that been your experience?
Yeah, I'm sure when I came along, it was like, huh, we got a black girl who's theologically solid. She's married.
Yeah.
She got kids.
Uh,
She's advocating for like. Of course, they saw me. It was like, absolutely, we'll give you our stages.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll give you our publishing contracts. But God forbid you start talking about justice. You're a woke warrior now, ma'am.
that part.
And that's what I said. To Democrats and Republicans, they're really just one coin. They're just two sides of the same coin, man. Like I said, the liberal, they see the so-called black man as a pawn to be used in order to to push a lot of liberal ideologies. The only thing about the liberals is that they basically don't tell you straight up that they don't believe in God. The conservative Republican, they see the so-called black person as he's like, I can use him to basically say all the negative things that I think about the so-called black community, but I'll use it through his face. So, but at the same time, the conservative does says a lot of truth. But it's seen as they try to make them as the quote unquote racist party. But that's what they use it. And once they see a so-called black man who really thinks for himself, and he can see that hey, my people are conservative by nature. We are family oriented. We are God oriented people. We're spiritual people. They try to align us with the conservative party, and that's not our salvation. Our salvation will come not from a political party, but from the Most High. And that's why our people think that, a certain party is going to save them, or a certain president is going to save them and give them reparations or whatever. Our salvation is going to come to the Most High, according to Second Chronicles 7:14. So, until our people understand that, our people are going to be constantly be used as pawns from the liberal and the conservative Caucasian. And we're just going to end up confused and frustrated.
We loved you. We absolutely adored you when you were telling all of our kids to stop being gay. But now you over here saying that black people matter. So
And that's why I said Jackie Hill Perry. She a lot of people I see a lot of people giving her credit. She's sound on a lot of issues, not everything, but she's sound on a lot of things. But she even got caught up in the woke rabbit hole with the Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter, as people already know, or they should know. It was basically a Ponzi scheme for the Democratic Party. It's really just a money laundering scheme to finance the Democratic Party for the eventual presidential election in 2020 that allowed President Biden to be elected or selected. But yeah, Black Lives Matter was a scam, and I mean, I saw that. I saw that a few years ago. Shout out to Chronicles of Judah. He showed that out back in like 2017. But I remember seeing that when they had that Ferguson riot, and even the Ferguson riot, they were talking about him like that. There was a guy in Ferguson. What's his name? Um, what's his name? It's escaping me right now. But um, he called out the guys who were in Black Lives Matter, who basically were using those situations to just try to create some fervor for themselves and attention for themselves. I forget his name. What was his name? I don't remember. I'll come back to me.
it tells you how double-minded some of these spaces actually are. They want a preacher that preaches to their own views,
Yeah.
but not all of the views of Scripture.
How do you? Because anybody who knows my journey knows, like, I was essentially saved, and then like that was my first venture. Those are the first people that like really embraced me. So for them to not acknowledge my push for justice
That's tough.
was heartbreaking for me.
Yeah.
And I went through, because I was like, well, who then do I ask questions to? Because y'all are the minds. Like, if the professor at Westminster disagrees with me,
Darren Seals, that was his name. Darren Seals. He was a Ferguson activist, and he basically called out the Black Lives Matter, and that was back in like 2014, 2015. Like he was already talking about how they were using the Ferguson situation to um, just get attention for themselves and form their own movement. But he had interviews where he said it was a scheme. Like he already knew, and he got killed. He got killed in a he was burned alive in a car like crazy. And man, like but find an old video of him talking about Black Lives Matter. He'll expose it from like over almost 10 years ago.
then I must be the one who's wrong. And it made me say, well, maybe this whole thing is wrong. And I went down a spiral of doubt and despair. Like, how have you kept your sanity and just your focus in the midst of it all?
Yeah, because that wasn't my first space.
Okay.
My first few years of ministry experience was the Black church. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in the Black church. And so I was grounded in a particular way. And I made sure to keep people around me that weren't like them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like my team, my friends, my mentors. Like even one of my mentors now is highly charismatic. You know what I'm saying? And so to be in RTS and be learning theology and having people say, "Oh, God doesn't speak; the gifts have ceased," but to maintain a submission to leadership that's like, "Nah, like God does talk to His people. Like this, like we can quench the spirit." I think that levels you out where you can learn but not necessarily assimilate.
Yes. I feel like that's the place that God slowly got me to.
So basically, what she's saying is that she kept so-called black people around her. I'm like Lecrae. Lecrae became a Christian, and he just surrounded himself with conservative Caucasians. And then when something real popped off, and he exposed that he's, oh wow, you're actually a so-called black person. Like they were turned off by him, and he got culture shocked, or he got traumatized by that. Jackie Hill Perry is basically saying that she kept her people around her from St. Louis, and I got family in St. Louis, but that's what I say. You got to keep people around you, especially as a so-called black person. You know our our people are a little different from everybody else, so for good and bad. But when you have a solid foundation, you got a good family, you got good friends around you. You got to keep them around because they're gonna keep you grounded. So knowledge puffs up, but love edifies. So when you have family that really loves you, they're going to keep you grounded. They're gonna keep your feet still planted to the ground. So whether you get so big and so tall, when eventually life humbles you, you won't be it won't be too traumatizing when you fall down because you got people around you. So shout out to Jackie O. Perry for keep holding on to people in her life like that.
Hmm.
So what has rattled you?
Rattled me.
Like because I mean, you got kids, husband, public ministry, books, music.
Stretch marks.
That's what's rattled you. Stretch
No,
marks. Okay, just check it.
no.
But
I
like,
just
what
want.
has
I just wanted
rattled
to
you?
add
What
that.
has made you say, "I need to press into the Lord more. I need to be more dependent upon Him," and because of this particular,
So by rattled, like what I struggle with.
yeah, it could be struggle.
Hmm.
But what you feel like, I would say more along the lines of because of the world that you are a part of,
Yeah.
not just like your personal struggle, because we
Yeah.
all got our personal
Yeah.
struggles, but just the unique struggles of being who you are and having to do all that you do.
Hmm.
Like, where have you found it to be the most difficult?
Before she chimes in, I gotta say this: Christians are the only people I know because I grew up with them. Man, they love to just talk about their struggles and the things that they're working on, and I'm not saying that having aspirations to be better is good, but they love to ask you like, what are your struggles and what are your temptations and things like that. Like they just find it very hard to believe that someone can just be pretty solid. And I'm not saying that no one's perfect. We're not perfect, of course, but they really find it offensive when someone really has like a strong foundation and that they're not really rattled by outside opinions. Like they really find that intriguing. So they have to kind of figure out what's your weakness. Like like that Paul verse and or I'm sorry, the Romans verse in Romans 7 is like, I struggle with this, I go back and forth in this, and I'm a wretched person. Like they really glorify that. They really identify with that. They think that being a Christian is constantly being in constant a disagreement with your flesh. Like and I'm not saying that we have struggles. Everybody, we all have issues that we go through in life, but they really find that like one of the conversation pieces that they like to talk about almost every time you meet them. Like they like to talk about your struggles and stuff like that. I just found that really funny how he's really trying to press into her because this whole interview, if you watch the whole interview, she's been pretty pretty sound. She's very sound in her doctrine. So he's kind of like, man, why am I not like that? Lecrae's not like that because he values the opinion of others. That's why he got 2 Grammys because he cares about those things. He cares about the rewards. He cares about the celebrity worship. Like that's him, allegedly. But I mean, anyone can see that who knows Lecrae. He's a very people pleasing person, and he likes the attention. He likes the spotlight. So that's just him. He got those are his struggles he got to work with.
So many places. I think time management is a struggle,
Okay.
and by that I mean,
So you saying I need to let you go?
nah, like even with the rapping, right? I have so many avenues and opportunities to do ministry,
Mm-hmm.
but I actively have to make the decision to say no so that I have time for my family,
Yeah.
right? And so even not doing music was like, I can't do everything just because I can do everything.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Jackie Hill Perry for understanding that because she's a very talented musical artist with poetry and rapping. But she understands that her first responsibility is to be a wife and a mother. Shout out to her, man. She really understands that. She has a lot of things that she has going for her. She does have a ministry. I'm not really a fan of ministry from women preaching. I'm not trying to be offensive, but man, I just you know, I'm not really trying to learn from a woman about the Bible. No offense to her, but I'm glad she understands that her role as the wife and the mother. That's good, because people try to get her to think that her since she's so talented, she should be making music. But no, her role is to be a wife and a mother. And I'm glad she understands that. So shout out to her. Shout out to her family. Hopefully, they have a fruitful relationship. But I'm gonna just end it right here. Y'all can watch the full interview with Lecrae. What I call the conflicted Christian. One thing about Lecrae, I tell him, man, he claims he has a group, he has a label called 116, based off Romans 1:16, where Paul says that I am not ashamed of the gospel because it is the power of God that can save men. But throughout this whole interview, he talks about being ashamed of talking about the gospel. And I'm like, look, Ray, you're contradicting yourself, man. That's why I say you need to get out the limelight, get back in that Bible, and start preaching. Start preaching to yourself before you think about the next album. But that's just my opinion, man. All right, man. Peace.
Like there's some stuff I gotta say no.